somebody stops paying in April of 2020, you can't actually evict them for that until the moratorium ban ends 2 years from now. That's the way this is proposed. So a renter could actually live in your house as a landlord for 2 years, 9 months, having never paid.
So the question is this: how do most agents find the secrets to succeed in today's competitive real estate market, especially when the top agents are keeping those secrets to themselves? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. Hi, I'm Aaron Amuchastegui, and welcome to Real Estate Rockstars.
Hey, Real Estate Rockstars, this is Kelly Skevel, the guest host today with Aaron Amuchastegui, and we're going to talk about the state of the market.
And Real Estate Rockstars, this is Aaron, and we are both back. Kelly has agreed to join me again for another State of the Market, where we get to talk about the news and all of the crazy stuff we've seen. It is the first week of February. We're a few days away from Valentine's Day. Kelly, if you guys don't remember, she was our episode 904, a successful real estate agent up in the New York area. She also did a State of the Market with me just a few weeks ago, once last month, and on here, so I don't have to talk to myself as we get to talk about the fun news. So what's new in New York today?
We are under like 2 or 3 feet of snow up here right now. So
2 or 3 feet.
Yeah, we keep getting hit with it. Like, we got like 12 inches, then we got like another 8, and then we got a little reprieve, and now we're being hit again. This morning there was like 3 or 4 inches. So
do people do real estate when there's 2 or 3 feet of snow on the ground?
Oh yeah, especially in this market right now. I'm still out showing houses all the time. I was at a listing appointment yesterday. They are not. The snow is not stopping anyone.
I guess you guys are used to it up there. So I'm out in Austin, Texas, and it snowed for the first time in 5 years here, like a month or 2 ago, and the whole world shut down. It was like no one drives in it, no one anything. It was like the quietest snow I'd ever seen, because literally no one even drove their car. Yeah. And today we're seeing like a freeze outside. It's super cold. All of a sudden it went like 20 or 30.
Oh, wow.
And we're getting kind of some hail and stuff, and people are like, close the schools, it's really bad out here. So you guys up in New York are used to it. Where I grew up in Oregon, we were always driving around in heavy snow.
Yeah, you must be used to it too.
But I wasn't doing real estate then. So I didn't know if people were like, yeah, show me the houses. I guess what do you do for inspections if like half the house is covered in snow when you're an escrow?
Yeah. So the inspectors will like put a disclosure in there that they couldn't see the roof. And so they can't make any evaluation on the roof. I think I'm trying to think the only other thing, if like you have Bilco doors to your basement on the outside and they can't get in because the Bilco doors are covered, but otherwise it's mostly just like assessing the roof that causes an issue on inspection.
And I guess maybe they have pictures to show where the grass was or where the bark was or anything, because they just have to guess, right, what the outside of the house looks like.
Yeah.
It is fun stuff. So today you actually got some articles together ahead of time. I have a few fun news articles that I'm bringing to the State of the Market. You have some that you're bringing. What's the first one you found we're going to talk about?
Yeah, so the first one is the one about Sylvester Stallone. It was a fun one, listing his house.
Yeah, I love seeing the big celebrity listings. So that one says Sylvester Stallone lists a knockout mansion. I love it, how clever they are, Realtor.com, for a heavyweight price of $110 million. Did you look into that? Did you see like what kind of house it was?
Yeah, so it's like an 8-bedroom, 9 full baths, 3 half baths, and it's on 21,000 square feet.
21,000 square feet. So now I'm looking at this views to Rodeo Drive, 3.5 acres down there. What a crazy thing. As you get to see the pictures aren't all that extravagant. The best part, if you look at the picture though, is like the second or third one of the living room has all of these like artistic drawings of, it looks like Sylvester Stallone when he was like an early boxer.
Yeah.
As you get to see,
too impressed. Probably isn't very nice, but I wasn't too impressed with it.
Yeah.
For $110 million.
Right. Giant window walls. I mean, that is a market that I really, I think a lot of those high-end markets, people just throw numbers at it. And there are like local real estate experts that know what happens. But I remember, Michael Jackson's ranch was on the market for 100 million or hundreds of millions or something for years, maybe like 10 or 15 years before it sold. And some of those are like, for me, anything over 2 or 3 million is like somebody just has a ton of money. So when you get up to like 100, 110, someone's like, yeah, I like it. That's easy. I don't think people are financing that, but.
Yeah. This says that he sold another one in, am I going to say this right? La Quinta. Did I say that right?
Yep. You said it right.
For $3.5 million, not that long ago. Like it was like 3.5 million. I think he sold it for. Maybe I'm reading that wrong.
That is a big difference. I think the people that would, and it said Sylvester's moving because he bought a Palm Beach compound in December for $35 million.
Yeah.
So Sylvester Stallone, you're going to add him to the people that are moving from California to somewhere else. And Florida is, we're getting a lot of people moving to Texas. I don't think people are moving from California to New York right now. I think people are leaving. No. I don't think we're doing that.
In New York.
And vice versa, especially with the snow that you guys have. But are people moving from New York to like Florida too right now?
Yeah. Tennessee is a big one. People are going to Texas. I keep hearing, for years we've been hearing about how people are moving out of New York pre-pandemic. So the taxes are really, I think you guys have high taxes in California too, right?
Yeah, California had high income taxes. Texas has no income taxes, high property taxes. There's pros and cons of every state. One thing they don't have in California, I was telling people last night, is bugs. You start to go to these other states, you hear bugs, you see cockroaches, cicadas, things like that. That's just, those don't exist in California. It's not a thing. But I bet the person that pays 110 million is going to be a Rocky fan. But listeners, if you guys want to go see that one, go check out realtor.com, search Sylvester Stallone list. You could see the house that he's selling for 110 million, and he's downsizing by buying the $35 million compound in Florida instead. And I'm sure it has a boat dock where he could park his yacht. And he's not going to pay, I don't know if Florida has income taxes, but people like Florida right now. People are loving Florida. So let's see what I've got. I don't have anything as cool as that, but I have 2 articles that I wanted to combine that are really super interesting. So one was, the paper that says Washington scrambles to avoid mass eviction as moratorium nears the end. Now, the rent and eviction moratoriums kind of keep getting extended throughout the U.S. And we've talked a lot on here about people being behind on rent and what we do. I even think when you were on here last time, we were talking about like tips and things to do when renters aren't paying. We have in Texas, we have some renters that aren't paying. We went to go look for have them apply for the stimulus that was for that. And just last week, they opened it up on January 27th. And by February 4th, all of the money was spent for the cities that we were. And that was quick. That was, if we didn't get it filled out, I don't think the form ever even came online, right? They had said okay, now we're accepting it, but they were using old forms. But within 1 week, all the money was spent. I made some posts on my Instagram for people to look and see kind of how much money got sent to their city and their state. I had a lot of people reach out and request that, but I was surprised to see how quickly, at least that first run got spent. I think there is still a second run from that new stimulus that'll be sent out. But if you didn't get it the first time and you're a landlord or you're a tenant, you want to apply right away because it's all going to be spent within 4 or 5 days of it going out. So this article is saying, even as the number swells to end the state's eviction moratorium is up in Washington, Governor Jay Inslee extended the moratorium multiple times. Most lawmakers, lobbyists, and advocates expect March 31st will be its true end, at least at the state level. So this is one thing where they're saying, hey, we think it's going to be over, and they think March 31st is going to happen. They said the staggering amount of estimated rent debt means that even $365 million in federal rent relief soon to be appropriated falls well short of what's needed. Courts will be inundated with eviction filings to the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance. And that's what we've seen in some other places too. So it says expanding tenants' rights is necessary. This is from Representative Nicole Macri in Seattle because current state law is inadequate. Our Residential Landlord Tenant Act never imagined that there'd be 200,000 renters who couldn't pay rent at the same time. And then there's people on the other side of that too. The other reason I wanted to bring this up, so right now they're saying, hey, it's going to come to an end, but they're really worried there's 200,000 people will be in eviction because they haven't paid rent since March or April. And I agree with that concern. I think it's a problem. then somebody that actually is an investor in Washington forwarded me an article from the Rental Housing Coalition that said, SB 5160 extending the governor's eviction ban for 2 years and permanently altering the process. So just a couple weeks ago, they were voting on this. I don't know what the results of it yet, but it was absolutely terrifying. They'd be considering something like this. It says absolutely terrifying as an investor, as a landlord, or even as a real estate agent, because it says the 5160 would prohibit landlords from terminating or refusing to renew a lease that expires at the end of the lease. So just like, hey, you had a 1-year lease. At the end of the lease, you say, okay, you're moving out. You can no longer say you're moving out. It presumes that any no-cause termination notice issued to a tenant for any unpaid rent that accrued between March 1st and the end isn't valid. So March 1st, 2020. So somebody stops paying in April of 2020. You can't actually evict them for that until the moratorium ban ends 2 years from now. So a renter could actually live in your house as a landlord for 2 years, 9 months, having never paid. And I mean, this article that got sent out. So if you're up in Washington, check out SB 5160. But it says it prohibits landlord from even inquiring about, considering, or requiring a disclosure for making sure that they have that they pay their rent. It says before any collection action for unpaid rent accrued, it has to be for rent before March 1st. You have to allow repayment plans, and you can't even reach out to them to insist that they pay rent. So you can't even, not that you can't file eviction, but they don't want you calling to say like, hey, you still haven't paid your rent. Could you imagine if something like that is that the most extreme example it's the most extreme example I've heard.
The repercussions of this, right? So these landlords are not going to be able to make their mortgage payments, right? They're going to run out of, if they have reserves, they're going to run through those reserves in almost 3 years. But then they can't, it'll be difficult for them to put it on the market and sell it because there's non-paying tenants in there for potentially another 2 years. I mean, so there's going to be more foreclosures. Like there's like so many far-reaching issues.
Yeah, it seems like such an extreme example and an extreme plan that I can't imagine how it plays out or it works or helps people. We were in escrow to buy a house this week. We were supposed to close on Tuesday, and the seller was supposed to deliver it to us vacant. And on Tuesday, they reached out and said, sorry, our tenant didn't move out. They were supposed to move out last week. It was the end of their lease. They didn't move out. Do you want to buy it anyway? And we were like, no. Well, first we said, well, what are they paying for rent? Because we were going to put a renter in anyway. So like, maybe this works out. Well, they were paying $800 a month in rent, but the market rent for that is $1,600. And so it was like, okay, we don't want them. But then it was also like scary to think like, so if a renter just isn't going to move out at the end of their lease, they decide not to move out, and the local eviction court isn't even hearing eviction cases because of all the moratoriums. You're like, so that's a prime example of just what you just said, right? Like somebody's going to have a really tough time even selling their property. I love to remind people, when I posted it on Instagram, I had one guy reach out and he was just like, oh, my heart cries for all those landlords. It was a cancel rent mentality. And I just said, people don't understand that most landlords are like people that own a second house. Like most landlords aren't huge institutions. I don't know. It's most of the landlords in the U.S. are individuals, and most of the houses in the U.S. that are renters are actually owned by somebody that only owns one other property. So they're not people with deep pockets. Yeah,
and they don't have the reserves. I mean, and even if you did plan and had reserves, there's no. I mean, who has 2 years, almost 3 years worth of reserves to pay for that? Sad.
Yeah, forever. So if any of you guys are agents up in Washington and you're paying attention to SB 5160, reach out, message me. Let me know what's happening. What are people thinking about it? Is it totally a scare tactic, or is it a law that's going to happen? Because I think that it really just going to change the market. I mean, it's got to change resale value of anything, just because I wouldn't want to be a landlord there right now.
Real estate rock stars. This is Aaron Demuchastegui with a quick commercial break from our sponsor, Rent Ready. And you've heard me talking about them lately. You heard them talking about the offers. I even interviewed Ryan Barone in episode 939. So you guys can go back and listen to that to learn more about Rent Ready. But here we go. Looking to streamline your rental property finances this year, tenant management can eat up a big part of your budget. So reducing turnover and avoiding costly vacancies can save you big bucks year over year. keep a profitable cash flow with consistently occupied units when you use RentRedi. With RentRedi, all you need is one software to see expiring leases, list units, screen tenants, e-sign leases, track renters insurance, send rent reminders, and collect rent online. RentRedi can help you manage your tenants, increase retention, and keep business costs low. As part of a special deal, RentRedi is offering our listeners a whole year of RentRedi for $1, right? That's what I'm always talking about. $1, that's right, $1, but only if you use our code. So you have to use code ROCKSTAR and sign up for RentRedi's annual plan at rentredi.com. That's RENTREDI.com. If you've got one house, 5 houses, or 10 houses, and you just want to check it out, I've gone and looked at it. I have a lot of rentals that we own, and we were using 5 or 6 different software technologies. One to be able to list properties, one to be able to accept money. We create the lease in a different document. We use DocuSign for other things. We got all these different sources, but RentRedi's doing it all for one. I recommend you go check it out.
All right. Well, do you have anything? You have any other happy articles? Any other fun articles? What do you got?
Do I have any happy? Let me see. Let's talk. So this is one that this is a subject that I've been really liking. It's the one on, let me make sure I say it right. No, not that one. Let me see here. Housing economy bright spot, but regulatory affordability challenges persist.
Yeah. So where did that report came from? The NAHB, the National Association of Home Builders, right?
Yeah. Yep. On February 9th. So this one, go ahead.
I was going to say, so it looks like it says housing affordability will continue to be a top concern. A lot of articles have been about that. What does this one say about affordability and what's going to happen?
This one speaks a little bit more about like the new construction and new builds and, what that's looking like. And so they had a bunch of stats in there. Actually, I guess I'll just go through it like you do.
Yeah. Read me what you see on there.
Yeah, let's see. So they talk about, how the single family homes generated strong price gains in 2020. And then it goes on to talk about, even though there was price gains, while supply side pressures such as resurgent lumber prices, a shortage of buildable lots, inconsistent access to building materials, and a regional skilled labor deficit foreshadow higher costs and longer build times this year in 2021. A changing regulatory landscape threatens to further erode housing affordability and make the tight inventory environment worse. So this is interesting to me because as a real estate agent and with my buyers getting into these bidding wars and really having to go way over their comfort level and like purchase prices, I've been actually talking to clients where it makes sense that we've been looking for vacant lots and building. Mm-hmm. Now all of our builders are backed up into the builders that I work with are now backed up into next year. They're scheduling into 2022 and it's February.
What a crazy thing. And how would they even, so an important part in there, it says, so lumber prices alone are increasing the build at least $16,000 on a typical single family home. Like typical 2,000 square foot house, it's costing them an extra $16,000 to build right now, just from the cost of, just from the lumber increase.
Yeah.
That means if it was 30,000 lumber before, now it's 45, so that affects things. And then with everything taking longer, I think that there are people that are like, let's build houses instead. I think building houses is going to be one of the answers to the housing shortage. But also as a result, having all the supply gone, I think there's so many reasons the supply is lacking, right? So someone's getting shipped from, other countries and kind of that has slowed down. Everything around the US though, supply is really hard right now. If you order a play set for your backyard, it takes 4 months for it to show up right now.
We ordered a couch for our house in December and it's not supposed to be delivered till April. Like we totally forgot that we even.
Oh my gosh. By the time it shows up, you're going to be like, whoa, that's like a surprise. Everything right now is even like, so our RV that we bought an RV this year to try to go, when we went on the road and started interviewing people and all the replacement parts, when something broke, they're like, they actually aren't manufacturing any replacement parts right now. So yeah, really strange time, definitely going to affect that supply and demand. So I said, hey, so demand is still high. Supply is still low. So the demographics look good for the 25 to 40 age group. The problem is the dearth of new and existing home sales. The number of existing homes for sale has never been lower. Why the pandemic? It says, current inventory stands at 1.9 months supply around the US. There's less than a half a month of supply in Austin, Texas right now. Of houses. That's the lowest it's ever been since they started tracking it, a gazillion years ago. And so the single family rents are up 3.5% over the last year, while rents on multifamily properties are down 3%. So I think that also tells you that the people that they've seen in the pandemic, like even renters, are saying we'd rather rent a house than live in an apartment, having a little bit more space, things like that. So my expectation is the single family built for rent construction market share, which is currently 4.5%, will grow from 5 to 6. An interesting thing about this, so a week or two ago, we've been trying to buy houses. I mean, I've been telling everybody we write all these offers, and we wrote 20 full price cash offers within hours of the listings coming out, and we got none accepted, or we got 1 or 2 accepted. But there was a new home community that just got released on the same day last week. All these different lots, 5 different builders, and it's rental product. It's new homes for rent, and we need more rental product out here. So we got into contract on every single lot in that community. We wrote full price offers to every builder.
I love it.
In that community. And so we're going to buy the whole community as rentals.
The whole community.
Yeah. Because we're writing full price offers on Zillow and or off listings off realtor.com, and we can't even get touched. So it's I think new construction, and by the time the new construction's done 9 months from now, it'll probably be worth more than reminds me of 2005.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why I've been pushing my clients, that where it's a right fit, and it's not a right fit for all of them, but if they're going into these, bidding wars and they're getting outbid on properties that they still don't have, they still need some cosmetic upgrades, they're not checking all of their boxes, we might as well find a builder, then there's predictability, right? They know when they know they can rent a house or an apartment until whatever date next year, resign for a 1-year lease or whatever, and they can. Even with for me, I feel like even with the increased cost to build that we're hearing about, you're still not overpaying, because in the existing home market, the cost to buy is through the roof.
Yeah. It used to be that, and for all you guys listening out there that hadn't considered new homes yet for your clients, it used to be that new homes would sell for 10 to 15% more than the same plan even from a year ago. Because if somebody moved into a new home and wanted to sell it a year later, it would be for a 10 to 15% discount, because people wanted the new homes instead for the warranty. So there used to be this huge premium. So new homes were always 15% more. Well, now as the market is getting so high on the resale side, now new homes are getting a little bit more affordable. Now those builders will raise those prices. But one of the things in Kelly's article is that it might take 6, 9, 12 months for the house to get built right now. Depending on where you are, look at what prices have done over the past 6 or 12 months. If you think it's going to continue to stay tight, your clients can get into a new construction right now, and by the time that the builder is done with it, hands it to you, it could be worth more than they offered. Or the same with building a house, getting land and building. Make sure that you get that contractor locked up soon or tie it up, because people are like, well, I don't want to wait next year to build, and you're like, well, I don't see anything that's going to change the supply dramatically where, this part of the business is. I don't think there's all of a sudden going to be a bunch of supply. So get on the list, start checking out new homes, even though they are going to cost you more. I guess it's not too surprising that prices have gone up that much, but that is really interesting. So let's see what else I got. So New York City. Man, I feel like I've been harping on New York City and San Francisco lately, but I've also interviewed several agents from both New York City and San Francisco. One recently that was like, hey, New York City's going to come back. He lives downtown. He loves it. And he's confident with that. But 2 articles that came out in Bloomberg. The one says on February 8th, rents slide in New York City and San Francisco while cheaper cities surge. So kind of in line with your last article. And then New York City apartment landlords getting burned in gentrification crash. Now that one I think is going to be pretty interesting. So really quickly, rent slide in New York City, San Francisco while cheaper cities surge. Flexible work policies have given Americans permission to move, driving up apartment rents in suburbs and lower cost cities, and pushing landlords to slash prices in New York and San Francisco. We've talked about this a bunch. San Francisco, New York used to be really expensive to live in. People needed to, workers especially needed to live close to their jobs. Now they can work from home. Why wouldn't they move to a house And so we're seeing apartment prices go down, single family rent prices go up. Rents fell 22%. So let me see over this time frame first. So it says rents fell 22% in San Francisco, 16% in New York, and 9% in Boston. It's not saying if that's year over year or month over month, but I know a 22% rent fall, even if it's year over year, is not good. They climbed 6% in Memphis, Tennessee, 5% in Phoenix. We're seeing rents increase on average 10 to 11% year over year right now in Texas. So when the renewals are coming up, a lot of the rents are 10 to 11% higher than they were the year prior. So big city rent slides, San Francisco, San Jose, and New York getting the biggest decreases. Boston, it's down a little bit. So rent is 9% cheaper this year in Boston. It's only 6% cheaper in Seattle, which that's kind of a surprise to me because of all the craziness of Seattle's been in the news for this year. And then a related thing. So New York apartment investors suddenly waist deep in distress. By December, they were behind on $395 million of debt-backed mortgage bonds, almost 150 times the level a year earlier. Tenants in rent-stabilized units owe at least $1 billion in rent, and wealthier ones are fleeing the city, leaving behind vacancies and pushing newly built luxury towers into foreclosure. So that's the part about gentrification is anything that was like, imagine being under construction on some of that giant stuff downtown. Yeah. Have you guys talked about that at all out there where you are?
Not really. We're so far removed where we are from the city, and we don't have. There's like a couple builders that do big projects here, but they none of them were in the middle of a build. Some were just getting ready to get some off, and I know that they put those builds off to see how things, to see what happens with the pandemic. But no, we haven't really talked about that much out here.
Yeah, and I think what it's really talking about is these super high-end condos and apartments, ones that are built for, luxury, where they were, they had one bedroom apartments for $2,500, for $2,500 a month. All these different deals going on, and a lot of them are in default right now. $46 million mortgage in default on a big building, all sorts of stuff. This reminds me of in 2007, 2008, the last housing crash. In Las Vegas had a few giant buildings that were, almost done with construction that got foreclosed on, and they were about to be like the biggest luxury buildings ever. And then they ended up getting foreclosed on. And, a few years ago, they got resold, and now they're getting finished, and now they're getting occupied, and they're great real estate. But they literally sat for like 10, 11 years with nothing going on. And I wonder what might happen because those are a few of those assets that feel like there's no short-term solution because they were pro forma to be a really high-end rent. And now it's like, so do they spend the money to finish these things? They spend the $5, $10, $20 million to finish these things only to have them be 10 or 20% occupied? Or do you sit and wait and have this giant building sitting and waiting? The one in Vegas, because it was like exposed to the weather for so long, it was sinking, and it became more construction after the fact. But I've only seen that. The only one I can really think of from the last crash that happened was in Las Vegas, and it was a super, super interesting deal. I can't think. Can you think of any others from past stuff where you've seen like a giant hotel or something crash?
No, not. We're such a small. I'm in such a small town.
Well, I've never lived in Las Vegas either, but I'm fascinated by some of those big ones. What else do you have? So what's your next one? I think you had something about Houston construction.
Yes, yeah, that's the one about warehouse. Let me see. Let me get my thing back up here. About the. Here we are.
The Wall Street Journal article. Came out February 9th.
Yeah. So this one is says Houston warehouse construction risks creating glut. And this one talks about how a building surge for such facilities in the Texas city over the past 3 years is driving vacancies up and rents down. About 8.5 million square feet of new space, warehouse space was built just in the fourth quarter of last year.
Talk about the timing on that. So it said rush to build during the e-commerce boom is now leading to an oversupply in Houston. So it was kind of like when COVID first hit, I think a lot of people talked about Texas was going to benefit with, people bringing labor back to the U.S. instead of outsourcing because of worries that the pandemic may have on these other cities that don't really have. So in the U.S., for example, people can work from home. Everybody has internet from home. In a lot of common places where they're outsourced, Philippines and India, not everyone that is a great worker has internet at home, has availability to. So there was a lot of talk about a lot of those jobs were going to move out to Houston. I remember I saw several podcasts on it back in March and April. And so then they kept building. So they've been building so much construction out there. That's like one of the few sad spots in real estate right now, right? Like the vacancy is going up. So we've been talking about, rentals in San Francisco, rentals in New York, but it's remembering on the commercial side pretty much nationwide is struggling, and warehouses are struggling too. It's interesting. Their plan it says distribution centers for online retail, have been the recent stars of the commercial property market, but then there's Houston. And so you see like all these like last mile Amazon facilities getting up, like a whole bunch of things that people are doing. That's like great real estate right now. Imagine having Amazon as a tenant, except for they'd probably just out negotiate me on everything. They would just keep going. We're just not gonna pay this month, and we're gonna be like, or we're gonna shut off your deliveries at your house. I'm like, all right, it's fine. It's fine. You're necessary evil. You can do whatever you want. But Houston, it's really interesting. Such a hit there, and so there's people from out of state, looking into the Houston market, but now they're talking about kind of buying that warehouse and distribution as a distress. A lot of construction happening in Texas. There's SpaceX stuff. There's a lot of companies moving here from out of state, but I don't think they're moving to Houston, and I don't see anything in the news that's going to be changing that. Listeners, as always, if you guys know a secret, if you know something that's going on in Houston that will, change that. But right now, it's definitely standing out as one of the few places where warehouse construction is slacking. This article specifically saying, hey, warehouse construction around the U.S. is doing great because of tenants like Amazon, but in Houston, it's doing the opposite, and vacancies are going up and it's losing value. That's really interesting. My last funny one. I shouldn't say funny with this, but the last thing that stuck out to me, I couldn't believe it was an Inman article. I had to take a second look at it. And then it said 1 in 5 criminally charged Capitol rioters have faced foreclosure. So I don't know how many people are actually getting charged for the Capitol riots. Maybe this article, it says 125 defendants on Wednesday. So Washington Post took the 125 defendants that have been charged with the Capitol riots. I don't know how many thousands of people there. So they didn't get very many of them, or they didn't choose to go after very many of them. But it said 1 in 5 is in bankruptcy or foreclosure. And, they went through to kind of try to see that. So I thought that was interesting because if nothing else, it talks about really what people are going through. And some people are wondering why people got so passionate and what people are out there. And the other side of it is, I definitely agree with eviction laws and foreclosure laws. I think they're there for a reason and they create stability. But the pain of being in foreclosure, the pain of being in eviction, I couldn't imagine a greater stress that's also placed on someone. And it sounds like it's really, and I think that was part of what they've happened. That's especially what the Post is saying and what Inman saw. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's sad, right? But I agree with you. It makes sense. Like our emotions, when we're under that kind of stress, that kind of financial stress, what we do with our emotions and how we react. And then with the news you consume, and you know what I mean? It all just kind of feeds on itself. And it makes me kind of sad. Yeah.
People should listen to Real Estate Rockstars radio instead of the news. Because we do that. We do the real news. People say I'm a little biased about stuff, but I think my bias changes on a weekly basis. So the good thing is I change my mind a lot. So if you want to get advice from me, don't worry, I won't stay one way too much. I really like to pivot. My ideas 2020 was my biggest year of pivot, and and maybe and a couple months ago I'm like, the market's about to crash, and then the last month we're like, let's buy everything we can because I think we got another year of this. So we'll see if I'm right or not. But man, I think it would be an interesting article for them to look at those 125. I bet there's way more to the story of the people that were there too. If they went into how many people are on unemployment right now?
Yeah.
Or even just crimes on a national basis right now, of crimes that are happening. How many of them are on unemployment? How many of them are facing foreclosure? The biggest catastrophe to me has still been that there's plenty of people that want to work and those jobs are shut down permanently. God bless my friends in Northern California. I'm going to fly back and see them this weekend, but they still aren't eating inside at restaurants. And in New York, you're obviously, or where you are, you can't eat outside right now. You'd be under 3 foot of snow.
Oh, they made like cabanas. Some are. So some places we can eat inside, but some places have these cabanas put up with heaters in them. And I'm like, I get so cold. I'm like, that, I know that thing still has to be like 50 degrees at best.
Isn't that, a friend of mine was at the Ritz-Carlton up in it's like East California. It's up by this the ski lodge. So it's like on North Star, and he's there for his anniversary. So they shout out for you, Tyler. And he shows the picture, and they're like eating outside in like 30 degrees under a heater, and they're like can look into the window and see this empty dining room, and they're the only ones there. And you just go like, oh man. So I still think that's the biggest tragedy over the last year is there are still just a ton of people that are suffering and a ton of people that are struggling because their jobs don't exist right now.
Yeah.
And it's really tough to go pivot and find another job when every month you're told next month it'll be back to normal. So at least, when people know like, hey, your industry is shot, they're going to pivot. They're going to go find other things. Lots of good service industry workers that should be joining your real estate teams out there, listeners. So if you haven't started going and asking about the people that used to be your favorite restaurant server that aren't there anymore because they're out of work, go find them. Go find them on LinkedIn or go find them on Facebook. See if they want to join your real estate team, because there are some prime candidates that would really crush it in real estate that also need it right now. So Kelly, it's awesome to have you on here. Did you have any other articles? Did we have one more that I missed?
I had one more. Do you have time for it? You want to know?
Yeah, knock it out.
What is that one? So that one's the commercial. Oh boy, here we go again. I keep losing. So this one is, do I not have it pulled up?
It's the Forbes article. It says how the pandemic continues to affect, I can't read today. Sorry, listeners.
Yeah,
to affect the commercial real estate market from Rob Capital. Yes,
that's the one. So this one talks about actually office space. So still the commercial real estate, but this is in the office with the office space. And that the demand for space has been impacted by social distancing, shutdowns, quarantines, layoffs, remote work. And as a result, for commercial real estate, it has changed dramatically. So they're talking about like there's still a demand, but whereas they were looking before for spaces with gyms, lounge areas, and meeting rooms, now the demand is for good indoor air quality, touchless technologies, appropriate distancing between office cubicles. And some businesses are going for a blended remote and in-office model. So I thought that was interesting that the demand is still out there for commercial real estate office, but they've just, like you were just saying, they just have to pivot.
Right. Like prices are down. So they started the article with saying, is it a good time to invest? And you look at that and you go, maybe. But one of the so in one sense, I personally believe that, commercial real estate's going to come back in a lot of places. Maybe not everywhere, but it's going to come back. But a guy that I interviewed, Ari from Austin, I interviewed him a couple of weeks ago, and he's a commercial developer, and everything's changing, right? So they're making it to where the elevators don't have buttons, that the offices now have windows that you can open and get fresh air in. That used to be like a danger. Because someone was going to fall out a window, and now they're like, well, they want to make sure that you can open a window on the 100th floor. And then the other side of that, we're like more social distancing. So it's like, so maybe people are going to come back to an office, and they need less space because of less employees or because of working from home, but they need more space per employee. So they might not be saving money. You see what I'm saying? So like for businesses to come back, they're like, hey, maybe if all of their employees were going to come back, they would need 2 or 3 times the square footage they had before to get those extra amenities, the touchless amenities. I bet there will be a business in people buying some of the old commercial stuff and retrofitting them for this sort of thing, for the social distancing and the touchless. But man, I don't know if it's just a personal thought, but I hope that in 3 years, we're not so I am not stressed to get on a busy elevator with people, or if I should be, or I should. I don't want that to be forever. I know there was a time when we could fit 30 people in an elevator, and it stunk and was uncomfortable, but it wasn't like that it was like a health hazard. Someday I hope things are somewhat normal again. I don't really want to accept that offices are going to be totally changed for the future, although I'm seeing that they are. It just makes me a little sad personally.
Yeah. I agree. All the changes it's just a lot to take in. It's constant.
But the quick pivots, right? The people that are smart enough to say, what do we want next? Those will be the first commercial buildings to fill up again. The ones that say, like the ones that are catering to the new normal, whatever that word is, we will see. Kelly, so we're almost out of time on our state of the market, but let's jump to, how is your business going now in the last month? So it's 3 feet of snow. You're showing buyers. You have a lot of stuff in escrow right now. A lot of clients needing stuff.
Oh my gosh. It's crazy. It like January 1st hit and all the buyers came out and they were like, we're ready to go. And of course there's no inventory. Normally in the winter, we're not seeing multi-offer situations. We're not seeing bidding wars, and it's already happening. It's going to be another fun year.
Yeah, I remember in March talking to some people that said, well, usually the winter time, like in like Boston area, like usually the winter time, real estate's really slow, but so we'll just stay indoors till then, and we'll just expect, they're like, this is just like winter. They were like, we're kind of used to the market getting shut down a couple months a year, and it'll be fine. And now it's like people are pushing right through it. Well,
yeah.
Kelly Skevel, from New York, thank you for coming on and talking to me again today. Real Estate Rockstars, thank you for listening. And Kelly, I can't wait to have you back on again. Thanks for being here.
Yes, thank you, Aaron. I always love chatting with you.
All right, talk to you later.
All right, Real Estate Rockstars, this is Aaron Muchastegui jumping in again to thank you for listening to the show. Hopefully you guys loved listening to that one. And I want to make sure that you know about all of the extra resources that we have. And also, we need your help. They say podcasts are free. You get to listen to podcasts for free. But what is the cost of that podcast? I would say if I could beg you to pay anything for that podcast, I would say the cost of the podcast is going and giving a review. So whether you download it on Google or Apple or YouTube or anywhere else, please go give us a review. Say what you liked, what you didn't like. It helps us get better guests. The more reviews, the higher we get in the rankings. Right now, we are the biggest podcast out there for real estate agents, and we want to keep that spot because we know there's lots of podcasts out there. So go give us a review. Also, be sure to go to hibandigital.com. If you liked any of the resources that those real estate agents talked about, we've got a huge video vault of those resources for free. Every penny that comes on the podcast that we interview, they give us something that helps them get their deals or helps them work with their clients. And we put that in the toolbox in our vault for you. So go to hibandigital.com and you can get it. If you're looking for real estate education, go to rebusuniversity.com. We have all sorts of courses in there to help agents succeed in real estate, how to get the listing, how to negotiate deals, how to become an investor, all sorts of different stuff, rebusuniversity.com. And if you want to chat with me, go find me on Instagram. And if you come find me on Instagram, you can send me messages. Tell me what you want to hear. Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like. We try to put a bunch of content out there too. You can find me in 2 different places. It's at rerockstars.com for our Real Estate Rockstars page, or at aaronandmuchastegui.com for my personal Instagram page, where I can chat with you about all sorts of different things. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again soon.